各位线上朋友，大家好，欢迎收看国际人权两公约系列开讲。为什么会有两公约呢？它的起源其实是来自于联合国大会，为了落实1948年的世界人权宣言，并且使它具有法律拘束力，于是在1966年通过《公民与政治权利国际公约》和《经济社会文化权利国际公约》，并于1976年正式生效，要求所有缔约国采取尊重人权并给予人权最基础的保障措施。而台湾一直到2009年，在民间人权团体多年的推动下，立法院终于三读通过了两公约，明定两公约具有国内法的效力。而两公约至今已施行了13年了，但台湾人民似乎感受不到它的成效。台湾真正有落实两公约吗？让我们来看看今年5月召开的第3次国家报告国际审查会议当天的审查实况。
The recommendation of the committee back in 2017 was that the covenants be deemed part of the Constitution of Taiwan, that they be given a constitutional position, which would mean, I presume, that they would prevail over any domestic legislation that is incompatible with that. And it seems clear that's not what has happened.
Because Taiwan cannot use this international complaint system, international communications. Yeah? If the domestic court does not solve, the victims in other countries, if they ratify optional protocol, they can still file individual communications to the Human Rights Committee or Committee on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. But Taiwan cannot do that.
But there is no clear specific crime in the domestic criminal code of Taiwan. Irrespective of whether the torture leads to death or injuries, this is not the important point. The important point is the deliberate infliction of severe pain or suffering on a powerless person. That's what makes torture such a terrible crime. So what prevents what has prevented so far the government to implement our recommendations in the first and in the second, and now also with our list of issues? On the reply to the second list of questions, then it was said, as of March 29, 2022, a total of 410 applications have been accepted, of which 2 were further processed and transferred to the disciplinary court trial. So 410 applications, only 2 were further processed, and then not to a criminal court, but to the disciplinary court. So there is something fundamentally missing, wrong, and that I think there is no independent authority to investigate and prosecute torture. Otherwise, I cannot imagine why there are no consequences for torture that is obviously happening. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many complaints about torture.
Freedom of religion. Well, there's nothing much from the government, and also nothing much also from so far that we have received. So if there's any burning issue that we really need to put on the recommendation, I think it's time to hear, I think, from our friends here.
Yes. Okay, anything on freedom of religion that you would like to add, please?
太极门案其实是一个非常严重的宗教信仰自由迫害案件。这一个案件 ，European Times 就是欧洲这边的时报杂志，对于其实有非常多的国际专家学者在讨论。寒冬杂志，它光是1年多就已经有100多位的国际学者专家针对这个案件做评论。他们没有罪，也跟税都没有关系，但是他们的土地却被政府以课税、以这个歧视为理由来没收他们的土地。
我们宗教人权公约的规定，必须要有法律依据，才可以限制宗教的活动的自由。但是我们台湾目前的状况是，透过行政命令，没有法律的依据，没有法律的授权，就来剥夺、限制人民的宗教活动自由。
The judge may have taken part to a considerable extent, for instance, in the investigation, and also may he, so to say, have during the investigation made expressions which could be understood in the sense that he had already formed an idea of how the case should be decided. I recall, I think we all have heard of the old well-known maxim that's saying justice must not only be done, justice must also be seen to be done. This is a question of confidentiality of the public in the way the legal system is functioning. So my question would be whether the present situation under Taiwanese law, where impartiality usually only comes up as issues where the judge has made a decision, is too narrow.
I have always asked how Taiwan thinks about what Taiwan thinks about the Universal Declaration on Human Rights in particular, and about human rights education in general. So mind you, this is now the third time that I have been here. On the average, that's what? At least 10 years, right? From the first time that I came here. And up to now, I feel like a failure, and you know why? Nobody seems to be interested in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Without the Universal Declaration on Human Rights, there would be no international covenant on civil and political rights, nor would there be a covenant on economic, social, and cultural rights, and all the others that followed after.
The two covenants have been in force in Taiwan for 13 years. However, they simply exist in name. Human rights are not being respected in government agencies. Over the years, the international reviewers' concluding observations and recommendations have not been taken seriously. The two covenants have yet to achieve the same power of the Constitution of Taiwan and basic human rights guaranteed by the Constitution, such as the right to effective remedies, anti-torture, and freedom of religion and belief, have not been implemented.
从 Virginia 谈话中，我们发现台湾官僚制式的行政做法，并没有真正想要多给人民享有更多的权利保障，也没有针对如何有效地执行两公约而提出根本解决问题的做法。如果两公约只是流于文件内容形式上的表面修正处理方式，只是浪费大家更多的时间，花费国家更多的公帑，并且剥夺老百姓应有的权利。同时，当天也有提到太极门案，让我们来看看国外学者对这案件的评论。
A question of justice. The Taiji Men tax case in Taiwan. Taiwan is known as a beacon of democracy in a region plagued by dictators. Yet, in 2020, thousands took to the streets to protest serious violations of human rights on the island. They were members of Taiji Men, a Taiwanese spiritual movement based on esoteric Taoism. It promotes a holistic development of mind and body, rooted in the practice of Qigong, including teachings about martial arts and other traditional techniques. Thousands of Taiji Men members regularly bring culture to the world through events that have been praised by political authorities, both internationally and in Taiwan. Taiji Men Qigong Academy was founded in 1966 by Dr. Hong Daozi, who is also well known throughout the world for his promotion of world peace and dialogue between religions and cultures.
I could see Taiji Men having a very, very positive effect for Taiwanese society.
Dr. Hong's path as a spiritual teacher has not been easy. Religious liberty is something Taiwan has achieved through a bumpy road only. In 1996, largely for political reasons, the government cracked down on religious and spiritual movements, accused of supporting opposition political parties. The campaign also targeted Taiji Men, although it had not taken political sides. On December 19, 1996, Taiji Men facilities were raided, and Hong was arrested. He and his wife's assets, including private holdings not connected with Taiji Men, were frozen. These actions were carried out upon orders of Taipei Court Prosecutor Ho Guanren, who developed a personal vendetta against Hong and Taiji Men, and was later recognized by Taiwan's Control Yuan, the body entrusted with checking illegal activities by public officials. Prosecutor Ho promoted a self-help association of so-called victims of Taiji Men, which was found by the Taipei District Court to be a false organization whose leaders had created bogus claims. The court also found that there were no victims. On April 15, 1997, Prosecutor Ho indicted Hong, who was freed on bail on May 26th, his wife and 3 Taiji Men members for operating a fraudulent cult. Ho even accused Hong of raising goblins, something which is totally foreign to Taiji Men's practices. From his public statements, it looked like Prosecutor Ho was the one who really believed in goblins. Between April and June 1997, Prosecutor Ho wrote to state and local administrations ordering the dissolution of Taiji Men, and even that water and electricity supplies to Taiji Men facilities in Taipei be cut. The Ministry of the Interior and local governments later annulled these orders and declared them illegal, as no decision had yet been rendered against Hong. In fact, Prosecutor Ho's case eventually collapsed. On September 25, 2003, Dr. Hong and his co-defendants were acquitted of all charges by the Taipei District Court. On December 13, 2005, the High Court of Taipei confirmed on appeal the first-degree verdict favorable to Taiji Men. On July 13, 2007, the Criminal Division of the Supreme Court of Taiwan pronounced the final acquittal of Taiji Men defendants, declaring them innocent of all charges. Compensation for the wrongful detention was given to Hong and his co-defendants. However, a byproduct of Prosecutor Ho's ill-fated actions remained. Instigated by Prosecutor Ho, the National Tax Bureau accused Hong of tax evasion and issued tax bills for the years 1991 through 1996. What was the basis of these claims? As it happens in most spiritual movements, members of Taiji Men, who are called Dizi, offer money as a gift to Hong, whom they recognize as their shifu, or master. These gifts are included in so-called red envelopes. The National Tax Bureau claimed that the content of the red envelopes should not be considered as a gift, but as a tuition fee members pay for receiving training in a so-called cram school, meaning a school where students engage in intensive study of a subject for a short period of time. Gifts are not taxable, while cram schools' tuition fees are. In Taiwan, there are many Qigong and martial arts organizations, and none has ever been taxed for gifts given to their masters. The Ministry of Education in Taiwan, which has direct regulatory authority over cram schools, declared 3 times, from 1997 through 2000, that Taiji Men is not a cram school. Taiji Men is indeed not a cram school. In 1999 and 2000, both Taiwan's finance minister and deputy finance minister publicly stated that since the Taiji Men tax prosecution derived from a criminal case, if Hong and his co-defendants will be acquitted in the criminal court, then the tax claims would be withdrawn as well. However, this did not happen. Hong and his co-defendants were acquitted of all criminal charges. Yet the National Tax Bureau continued to claim that the money in the red envelopes was a disguised cram school tuition fee and maintained the tax bills. Note that the 2007 Supreme Court decision that acquitted Hong and his co-defendants from all criminal charges explicitly stated that they were not guilty of tax evasion. In 2002, following instructions by the Ministry of Finances, the National Tax Bureau conducted a random survey among Taiji men Dizi to determine whether they regarded their contributions as gifts or tuition fees. All the 206 Dizi who responded indicated that they considered their contributions as gifts. However, the Tax Bureau declared that only 9 respondents had clearly indicated that their contributions were gifts. The statement was false, but the Tax Bureau refused to release the answers to the survey. Based on the Bureau's false statement about the survey, the Ministry of Finances refused to rectify the tax bills against Hong and Taiji men. They appealed to administrative courts, and Taiwan's Supreme Administrative Court ruled in favor of Taiji men on August 6, 2009. On July 17, 2010, the manipulation of the survey was exposed at a public hearing in the Legislative Yuan, i.e. Taiwan's parliament. Later, the National Tax Bureau agreed that a new open survey should be carried out. This happened only in 2011, and results were disclosed in 2012, revealing that there had been 7,401 respondents, and all had answered that they regarded the content of the red envelopes as gifts. The National Tax Bureau had promised to be guided by the results of the survey, yet they reacted by proposing to consider 50% of the money received in the red envelopes as gifts and 50% as tuition fees. This was obviously not consistent with the unequivocal results of the survey. Taiji men thus started another long journey through Taiwanese courts, supported by legislators and other public authorities, and by human rights organizations throughout the world. From this long and painful struggle, they emerged victorious. In 2018, the Supreme Administrative Court ruled that the content of the red envelopes should be treated as gifts rather than as tuition fees. The basis of the 20-year persecution of Taiji men by the National Tax Bureau had finally been removed. Unfortunately, this was not the end of Taiji men's tribulations. The National Tax Bureau had initially alleged tax evasion for 6 years, from 1991 to 1996. After the 2018 decision by the Supreme Administrative Court, it agreed to reduce the tax bills for the years 1991, 1993, 1994, 1995, and 1996 to zero. But based on the claim that for 1992, a decision had been rendered by the Supreme Administrative Court in 2006 and was final, it maintained the tax bill for 1992, including interest. Both the Dizi and the public opinion in Taiwan understood that this was a political vendetta after Taiji men had publicly proved the National Tax Bureau wrong. Clearly, what happened in 1992 was not different from what happened in the other years, and justice would have mandated to deal with it in the same way. Patently wrong decisions can always be revised if justice has to be served. The tax authorities treated Taiji men as a cram school and taxed it accordingly. Since the finding of fact was incorrect, the application of law was wrong as well. Therefore, the incorrect court order should not be executed. For example, when you clearly know that a person is wrongfully convicted and sentenced to death, you should not execute the person. You should try to correct the mistake and uphold justice. If the person is killed as per the sentence, then he is unjustly killed by the government. Now that the tax authorities have admitted their mistakes and the criminal court has ordered state compensation, it is unjust for the government to auction the assets of Taiji men's leader. If it does, that is theft of his property. No appeal by Taiwanese or international politicians, scholars, or human rights organizations stopped this vendetta. Not even courts of law were heard. On May 5th and July 23rd, 2020, Taipei High Administrative Court wrote twice to the National Tax Bureau of the Central Area, asking them to treat 1992 as the other years were treated. All this was to no avail. In August 2020, properties belonging to Hong were seized and auctioned, then confiscated after the auction was not successful, despite massive peaceful street protests in Taiwan and appeals by international NGOs. It may seem that this is a battle about money, but it isn't for Taijimen. They spent in legal fees only, in 24 years of struggles, more than they would have paid had they settled with the National Tax Bureau. Insisting on conscience and justice, they did not settle. By settling, they would have admitted that they had been guilty of tax evasion, something that is both against their principles and factual truth. On the other hand, we can suspect that it really was about money for some bureaucrats. In cases of alleged tax evasion, they get a bonus on the tax bills, and some did get the bonus for the 1992 Taijimen tax bill. It is not surprising that scholars and human rights activists from all over the world raised their voice in support of Taijimen. Theirs is not a minor case hanging on technicalities. It has widespread implications, both for Taiwan and the world. Significantly, already in 2005, the Control Yuan had listed the Taijimen case as one of the most important human rights incidents where it had to intervene. Taiwan is in a difficult moment in its history. Taiwan needs international friends, and it also benefits from its well-deserved public image of a country where, unlike in mainland China, human rights and freedom of belief are respected. The Taijimen case is a relic of a bygone era, when religious liberty was still not fully respected in Taiwan. The petty tax vendetta against Taijimen, however, raises doubts on whether the problems of the past have been fully overcome and is detrimental to Taiwan's international image. The fact that Taijimen's properties were seized and auctioned on the eve of the establishment of Taiwan's National Human Rights Commission on August 1st, 2020, was an unfortunate coincidence, which contributed to the impression that the official rhetoric is at odds with the behavior of some rogue bureaucrats. The case has also international implications. It is a perpetual temptation for politicians and others in power to persecute religious and spiritual minorities that they, for whatever reason, do not like through the misuse of the tax system. The European Court of Human Rights is just one among several authorities that have ruled repeatedly that tax bills cannot be used to discriminate against religious and spiritual movements a government does not approve of.
The European Court of Human Rights stated in a ruling in 2011 in the case Association of Jehovah's Witnesses versus France that through its tax administration, France had unduly harassed a group that had been illegitimately put on a blacklist of so-called harmful cults. The court went to explain that monetary offers made by devotees to their spiritual leaders or organizations are obviously gifts. The court concluded that considering donations as taxable payments is a typical way that some governments use and misuse to discriminate against movements that they don't like. But this is illegal under international human rights law.
I think that it is as bad, if not worse, to allow an injustice to continue as it is to create the injustice in the first place. And that is what's happened here with Taijimen.
Taijimen are not fighting for themselves only. They raise a crucial question of justice, freedom of belief, and human rights. In this sense, we are all Taijimen. The injustice perpetrated against them is injustice against all of us. Their victory will be our victory.
从影片中，我们可以很清楚看到，政府在太极门案件中严重违反两公约对人民生命、信仰自由和财产的人权保障。政府的税务和法务执行机关为了绩效，利用司法不择手段地剥夺人民的财产。如果大多数的人都选择忍气吞声，默默承受， 敢怒不敢言的话，那么只会增加违法官员的专权跋扈。诚如德国欧施奈布鲁克大学驻台教授连福荣提到，如果大部分的宗教在看到强权时却选择沉默，那么就会变成邪恶政治的共犯。要实现两公约，就必须要把这些错误的毁坏人权两公约的恶法完全改正，否则第一次、第二次、第三次人权报告，再多次的人权报告也无济于事。期盼政府能认真看待两公约，真正落实台湾民主法治的转型正义，保障人民应有的公民权利，也希望每个人都能明辨是非，不分族群，勇敢地为正义而发声。最后，与线上的朋友分享《世界公民想人权》这首歌来表达我们的心声，让我们坚持到底。谢谢各位线上好朋友今天的观看。